Hey everybody, this is Dan Marsala, and this is my presentation on applying the symbolic frame. So the five suppositions. The first one is what is most important is not what happens, but what it means. Um, so in my department, it just really felt like, as I've talked about before, with the whole implementation of the lead therapist position, that it was supposed to provide education, provide that kind of leadership presence when management wasn't there, etc. And it never really came to fruition about them doing what they were intended to do. Um, so upper management did just kind of they didn't really do much that provided anything that created motivational or morale improvements within the department. You know, when they did talked about things that you would have thought would have gotten the department excited, like nursing taking over floor therapy, just because of how negative things were in the department. When that was brought up, instead of being excited, that just made staff RTs feel like, wow, well, that's kind of one of our big bread and butter things. And if they're talking about us being over budget now, what does giving up one of our biggest money makers do for staffing? Is that just going to lead, to layoffs, etc.? Instead of being excited about it, it just kind of created more fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Because now people were getting worried about if they were going to have a job when this after this went through and stuff. So the next one, activity and meaning are loosely coupled. Events and actions have multiple interpretations as people experience situations different. So one of the things here, as I've kind of harped on a few times before, was management working with those unit-based teams to develop ways to increase billable items and productivity charges. You know, and then staff waiting for something to happen with it. So um, we worked together. We added a bunch of stuff, actually supply wise that we could bill for. That we worked with management and the finance people from the hospital to come up with all these items that we could bill for, and on top of that, come up with all these things that we could put in productivity charges for. So when they run these reports on us, they could see a better idea of how much productivity that we were actually doing. So we get all these things added into Epic, but then there's nothing that management does as far as education on to get everybody on the same page. They send out emails detailing these initiatives to improve workload, and they end the emails with "oh, more to come," and then you don't hear anything about it again. There's no kind of updates or anything like that. So it just kind of doesn't. It just nothing that really excites you or gives you, I guess, those butterfly feelings or just feelings that things are kind of trending in the right direction instead of the wrong direction. In the face of uncertainty and ambiguity, symbols arise to help people resolve confusion, find direction, and anchor hope and faith. So hope and faith wasn't a thing that really existed there. I think people were hoping things would get better, but they kind of, a lot of people didn't feel that they were. And, staff raised multiple concerns, asked for help, and, just felt like it really fell on deaf ears, and, which in turn led to multiple departures from the department. Like I mentioned before, I ended up leaving. And at that time, I think I was the sixth or the seventh person that left within about 4 to 6 months. And then I know one or two have left since I have. And as I mentioned before, on night shift, two out of the three lead therapists on night shift actually stepped down from their positions just because it just wasn't what they, had intended it. The job was actually going to be. So they, said forget about it and they stepped down. Events and processes are often more important for what they express or signal than for their intent or outcomes. Their emblematic form weaves a tapestry of secular myths, heroes and heroines, rituals, ceremonies, and stories to help people find purpose and passion. So Professor Wynn mentioned about in his video this week, and he's mentioned it before, about how, physical therapy has gotten involved in helping high flow patients self prone and things like that. They knew what the RT department was and they kind of hopped on board with that and stuff. Where I worked, it was kind of almost the complete opposite. We were running so short staffed, especially in the ICUs with, COVID still going on and being busy. And the nurses were just, and they're kind of flabbergasted by how short staffed we were and stuff. And they actually started raising concerns with their management about it. They actually had put in, nothing against us as RTs, but they actually filed like incident reports for like unsafe staffing levels because of it. I know before I left, there were nurses talking about, writing a letter, all of them to the hospital, to the hospital itself, to the very top, to the president about it, just because of how bad things were getting. It's when it's one RT in an ICU with 7, 8, 9, 10 vents by themselves, with multiple patients proning, and they're doing this all on their own. Obviously other people had assignments and stuff, but and would try to come in and help when they were free. But yeah, it just was getting bad to the point that people elsewhere in the hospital were seeing it and were kind of just like, oh my god. Culture forms a superglue that bonds an organization, unites people, and helps an enterprise to accomplish the desired ends. Unfortunately, just the culture there wasn't positive. I mean, it was definitely negative, and as I mentioned before, between our campus, just our campus alone, we had a lot of departures. But apparently, from people I've talked to, our other campus, the university campus, also has lost quite a few people. Multiple people have left over there. So they're extremely super short staffed now, and I know now they're offering bonuses to try to hire people and stuff, and it's just like if they worked and tried to make things better for the RTs there, they wouldn't now be having to train new people, pay bonuses out, that kind of thing. So organizational figures and organizational vision, you know, management, when we were short staffed, 1 to 2 RTs below what was called for, you know, they weren't there to provide extra help. On weekends, there would be days when we would go into a weekend on a night shift. The staffing, quote unquote, staffing rubric that we would complete. Management knew going into the weekends that it was calling for 6 RTs on the night shift at the Memorial campus, and we only had 4 on, but, nothing was done about it. And, Professor Wynn again talked about how he was, when they were short staffed, working on the floor helping out, we didn't have that, and stuff. And that just kind of further depleted morale because people are getting burnt out, and I think that just kind of increased that resentment and grumblings against management. People certainly didn't have very positive things to say about it. So symbolism and organizational culture, and this is also kind of goes to the symbolism, leadership using symbolism as well, because these symbols came from leadership in the hospital. So people who encounter symbols see them through their own eyes. Symbols acquire meaning through reoccurring experiences. The connection between symbols and underlying organizational values and their interpretation may differ. Ultimately, it's the interpretation of the symbol rather than the intention of it that wins the day. So we always kind of laughed about these because in the city on the highway going in, there were billboards posted for UMass, and they had this new slogan that they used, the relentless pursuit of care, and had, doctor or nurse or something, in the PPE with the mask on, with their arms crossed and looking all serious and stuff. And we kind of laughed about it because they say the relentless pursuit of care, but then you're running short staffed and you're miscarrying people and not seeing them because you just physically can't get to some of the people on the floor for floor therapy and stuff. So we joked around about that. It's like, oh, really, the relentless pursuit of care. And then another one that was used for like HR purposes, kind of in house, was the slogan, everyone every day, about kind of how they cared about like all the employees and stuff. But they're telling us that they're over budget, but then they send out an email from the president talking about most profitable month ever and blah 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 blah. And yeah, it just kind of, they were just kind of laughable. People just kind of more joked about them, and then actually saying, wow, that's really um, how this hospital feels. So reframing compared to the other frames. So compared to the other frames, I feel like the symbolic frame was really the one that was least utilized by leadership. The symbolic frame, it's supposed to address people's needs for a sense of purpose and meaning in their work. It's used to inspire people by making the direction of their organization feel significant. It's done through creating motivational vision and recognizes per performance through celebration. And that just never happened. You know, I could honestly speak for myself and most of the coworkers. People just dreaded going to work, and they just didn't feel like there was any meaning behind their work. There was no recognition for it, anything like that, and yeah, it was just a bad position. And as I mentioned way back in my presentation on the structural frame, I really, looking back now, think that whole management organization really could have been restructured differently. Like I said, having that director and the manager who really, the manager was kind of vying for that power of the director, just getting rid of that manager, having a director that was in charge of all the logistical stuff between the two hospitals, and then on each hospital just having a supervisor for the day, evening, and nights to kind of run everything as far as each hospital goes, I think really would have been the best option, looking back on things now. But as I've said, I've moved on. I've found a place that I feel is significantly better. Enjoy going to work now, and it's just overall just better environment. But yeah, so there are my references, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.